The birth of the modern thematic film score comes from a 1933 film, the original King Kong. This is the very first time that you have music that's composed specifically for a film where the music is mirroring the on-screen action and there's specific musical themes that are specific to certain characters. So this is the first time that a film is recognizing like that the sound is equally as important as the image. Because when you had the silent film era, you don't have any synchronized sound on the film strips. So the studios send the theaters the film strips of the silent film and then they give them cue sheets. So basically you'd go to a theater and you'd have live music being performed as you're watching the film. Depending on whatever theater you would go to, it would be a pianist, an organist, or a whole orchestra. And the cue sheets that were being sent from the studios, they just had pre-existing classical pieces that were just arranged and sent. It was not any original music scores because that was expensive. Once you have the golden age of the 30s and the 50s, that's when we start to have the original composed music scores and a full-on orchestra typically, which is 80 to 100 instruments. So like very, very expensive. Then when we get into the the silver age of the late 50s and the 60s, you have the old studio system collapsing and budgets shrank, and they're also competing now film with television, and they're trying to bring people back into the theater. And so they start to have jazz and pop ensembles to bring like contemporary music into the theater. So you have Breakfast at Tiffany's, the 60s James Bond's films, the original Pink Panther. So they're doing contemporary music in a smaller ensemble. It's still an original composed music score, but it's a much smaller ensemble. You also have the chamber score, which is classical music, classical instruments, but just much smaller ensembles. So like one piano, one flute, and a few strings. This is my favorite type of music score, is like the chamber score. So if you've seen the 400 Blows, this is a great example of that. You also have the modernist stripped down orchestra, and these were used, for example, like harsh strings are used in Psycho for like the psychological tension and for that effect. So those are kind of like the three different ways that film scores split into different directions in the Silver Age. Once you get into the 70s to like present day, there's a lot of changes because of the invention of the synthesizer and electronic instruments. And then you also have mixtapes in the 90s. So there's all these different changes like later on. But it's really interesting from like the first three eras of film to see how much just like budgeting or stylistic choices changed how a music is used to tell a story in film.